All right, what's up, everybody? This is Jason from the Tone Lab, and welcome to another episode of Chillin' in the Studio. And today we've got extra special guest, old school homeboy from frickin' Colorado, Zac Joe. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Jason and Tony. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And as always, I'm joined with my boy Tony Engel. How you doing, Tony?
Good. How y'all doing?
Doing great, bro. I'm doing great. So, Zac Joe, man, frickin', I feel super privileged to get you on the podcast, man. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Let's not embarrass me and too much.
No, man, you're Denver royalty, my man. Frickin', let's get into this shit. So, a real quick intro. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and where you come from?
Well, my name is Zac Joe. I'm 29. I'm a Capriterius.
All right.
So I was born in the month of speculation and inquiry. So my mom so I never listened. I don't know if that puts me in some sort of planetary, cosmic, ethereal alignment or not, but it doesn't usually bode well for me. Aside from that, I'm just a kid that was, raised between Wyoming and Kansas, and my dad was a musician. And I decided I had a penchant for, after living in Texas for a little while, to play death metal. When I was 14, I started a band with some crazy Mexican North Sider dudes, and we're called Cremation, and we became Cephalic Carnage over a certain summer, and I guess we'll dive into that.
Yeah. But that's you're gonna take the trophy for the best intro, man. Freaking. So what year did you guys start Sopholic?
1992.
92, and you're OG, right?
Yeah. I was 14. I had just moved. I'd been playing guitar for about a year. I had just moved from Texas. My dad was originally a musician from Wichita, Kansas. And like I said, I kind of grew up in the ranching community in Wyoming. And he decided, after my parents were divorced, he decided to move to Denver to be closer to us. And I was like, fully on enveloped in like thrash and punk and, a big movie nerd. I know Tony can speak to that, because one of my favorite memories of Tony and I've always picture you, besides the Butcher Shop days, but in the Nicaraguan Death Squad, kind of playing on an electronic drum kit, and you had like always the coolest Sopranos merch.
Oh yeah,
or at least one cool shirt that I remember. And don't think that's the only thing I don't remember about you, but
I wore the hell out of that shirt.
Yeah, so it's kind of ahead of your time, buddy. I think as a matter of fact, I just started watching The Wire again recently. So,
oh hell yeah!
So I mean, we moved up, and I had gotten really into death metal. There was this venue called Joe's Garage outside of Fort Worth, and believe this or not, I lived in a town called White Settlement.
Can't make that shit up.
No. And the funny thing is, it's an eastern or western suburb of Fort Worth, Texas. And if you look at Texas and Dallas and the way the highways are shaped, it looks like an upside down cock and balls. So if I'm correct in this, and you can, of course, 12, 13, 14-year-old people, saw this. And we lived right at the right at the tip there, where some say the feeling is, others say that's where you shouldn't be castrated. Anyway, so White Settlement, and it was a big Mexican community. And with that, there was a big heavy metal thing. This was the gangster rap era too.
Right.
So there was a lot of people chest puffing and stuff, and bringing guns into school and getting busted. And, so there was kind of a gang element always in my life in the beginning, just kind of by proxy and surroundings. As a matter of fact, I lived in Carrollton, Texas just before that. And I went to school with a guy named Ruben Rosas, who ended up forming a band called Devourment later on. So we kind of had that connection, although we didn't know each other back then. So there was this venue called Joe's Garage, and I would go there, and I saw Deicide play their first non-Florida show. Saw Bolt Thor play on the War Master tour, and Entombed play on the Tony and Jason, you might know, what's the EP that Entombed put out after Left Hand Path that was before Clandestine, when they had a secondary singer? Like already
trivia, Entombed trivia.
That one stopped me for sure.
But I saw him on that, so I'm talking too much already. I knew I was going to do this.
You're good, bro.
So
that's what we're here for.
I saw him do all that, and then Pantera was kind of the local heroes. And to us, they were a fucking glam rock band.
Amen.
You know, we're like, dude, they're just stealing from X-Hoarder. And, you know, so we were totally pulling that 14-year-old metal purist know-it-all shit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and so.
That's why you're one of the good guys.
Man, I fucking had a straight up fucking near mullet and battle vest at 14, man.
Yeah.
So we, seeing Deicide Joe's Garage, they were already my favorite band. That was just like, and they were fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
They came out with the chest plates that had holograms on them and shit. And I remember just seeing them. They actually had road cases and it said Deicide 666. Dude, I'm getting like goosebumps now. I'm such an emotional little shit. Nostalgic sentimental guy that I was just like, wow. And I remember like just being up front and the security guy's like, you okay? And like, you're not fucking moving me. You know, it's like I was watching the Beatles, man. I just on the Ed Sullivan show, you know, people talk about that.
My story with that is Morbid Angel. It was for Blessed of the Sick, and I remember like, and they're just like, oh, I like this, like I must do this, like it's like
exactly. And talk about an album to fucking do it with. You know, Morbid Angel. I mean, Trey's the
I was like, it just flipped everything after that. So then you get into Denver and you know, how long were you there before, like, say you hooked up with like Lynn and some of the other cats and Cephalic?
It was definitely Lynn. So we moved to I moved to downtown Denver right off Colfax, and there was a comic book shop there 3 blocks from, I was Detroit Avenue in Colfax. So it was like 13th, that would be in Detroit. So just an apartment complex that was there. East High School is where I went to high school. And, you know, we know all about East and kind of 4,000 kids and kind of a diverse community thing there. And there was a lot of, you know, the gangster thing kind of happening. And I was like, y'all ain't seen shit. Like, I saw some wild shit in Texas, you know? And then, so there was this, I was going to 7-Eleven one day, I was up the street and there was this black guy following me. And I was like, you know, I had my leather jacket on, my Deicide shirt, of course. I probably fucking wore it until it fell into my body. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is it. Here it comes. This kid's going to jump me. Like, let's just get it on. And he was big. He was like shredded for like a high school kid. And he just tapped on my shoulder and it's like, nice Deicide shirt. I was like, oh, fuck. I was just like, just awash and like, oh, fuck, he's not going to fucking beat me.
Wasn't expecting that.
And that was a guy named Joaquin.
Oh,
you have to know Joaquin.
Oh,
yeah. Everybody
knows
fucking
the pit.
Yeah,
that
flipping Joaquin.
Yeah, shout out to Joaquin.
Yeah, the flipping guy.
Yeah, shout out to Joaquin. Is he still alive?
He's got to be. I mean, I hope so.
I don't think so. I
Really?
This is rumor speculating, but I do believe that he might have passed away. I'm probably wrong on that, and I'm a piece of shit if I am, but I feel like I heard that.
On that one.
I might look into that, man. We'll see. Just ask around a little bit.
We all knew him. Joaquin was the guy that came and saw me play. And I was, you know, obsessed with Immolation and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And Morbid Angel and
that's a good one too. Immolation, dude. That's one of my favorites. So you were just showing me that book, man. And so I don't have the book. So Immolation comes out with the book and they've got like a page or two with you guys, you know, talking about you guys in there.
Dude, it's pretty cool. Like I got to know, like, do you guys have a name drop bucket? Is there like a limit of name dropping?
No, but maybe we'll start one right here. You know, I've got the bell. Like,
please do, because you know, when I thought of doing a podcast, which I won't, one dude called me a washed out name dropper once online. So I actually got this because the Immolation guys like sent that to me, so you can see that.
Yeah, good title too. Into Everlasting Fire.
I fucking freaked out, like, because I was interviewed for it, and I just am blown away how much they allowed me to talk in this thing.
Yeah,
And so that
super cool, super
I sent
cool
that
deal
to you.
Yeah, I read the whole. I read that page. I was like, oh wow, I don't have that book, but what a cool deal. Yeah, I was a huge Immolation fan growing up.
Fuck, it was insane to me.
So what do you think? What do you think the Denver metal scene was like during that era? Like, so you go from Texas, you know, you're in school, you meet Joaquin, and now you're kind of getting into the scene. What did you feel like? Like, how did you like the scene compared to Texas?
It was different, but kind of the same. Like what you have to realize about like the Texas scene is like those bands were all like professional and the scene was like bigger and it was more activated and they were getting all the tour. Well, I guess Denver was getting the tours too of, like the Demolition Hammer, Carcass, Spiritual Healing Tour and all that stuff that was kind of coming through. And I remember like Agnostic Front coming through with Obituary and Cannibal Corpse. And that was when the hardcore kids and the death metal kids finally I
remember them gigs. Those were crazy.
A lot of the Skins were kind of coming around back then. And I'm sure, which is crazy because I ended up touring with Madball. We ended up touring with Madball.
Oh, really?
Wow. Kind of got to know all that DMS crew pretty well and talk about those days. And nothing like having to meet Roger from Agnostic Front for the first time because you've been touring with his little brother, So I had to go over those stories. But it was still everybody's active and just it was different in the fact that I think Texas had just had so many more bigger bands kind of come through. And so there was a professionalism that kind of knew the formula was the code was cracked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If anything, I could also just be talking out of my ass and misremembering things completely.
Sure. Yeah. That's been happening on this podcast. The wife, she's kind of the producer. She kind of sets them up. She sets these questions up and kind of helps me out because I'm so busy with like we're doing our own music and I'm making videos and all this. And so she's like, dude, like you've said a few things that aren't totally accurate. And I'm like, oh man, like
I'm really worried about that.
Yeah. I was like, it's a blur. Trust me. So some of these stories are going to grow legs, but it's all good, man. It's a safe space here, bro. You can let it out. But go ahead.
The internet is full of there's no such thing as Cliff Clavin anymore.
Right.
Or the internet has only become a gigantic Cliff Clavin.
Yeah. Right. Right. That's a good point.
So we're just you gotta kind of watch out because no matter. And I'm one that is obviously. And I've been told this ad nauseum. Shout out another band I was in. That you can kind of get verbose and gregarious and start inflating your stories a little bit.
Were you in ad nauseum? I don't remember you being in.
I didn't remember that.
Founded it and then dipped.
My God, that was the worst narcissistic plug ever. I'm sorry. I was trying to use a good word and I was like, fuck, I was in a band called ad nauseum.
Yeah,
no,
plug
it's cool
away,
because people
man.
bring up a bunch of old stuff and it makes people's memories they start remembering.
It's one of the things that
back.
people like about the podcast is when we go down, we bring up some of these old vintage classics. Remember this band?
Nostalgic. People like nostalgia.
Yeah.
Well, and just looking at your two lovely faces, like brings me back to like so much of that era. It was great, man. You guys were pioneers in the scene too. And always like really, really nice, like true guys. Like,
I appreciate that. Thanks, man.
Every scene had their, haters and shredders and holier than thous. And you guys were nothing but that. I think Denver has a lot of I think it's kind of known as a really affable city. Sunlight does a lot for that.
I always felt like a lot of some folks would try to stir shit up, but me personally, I never went. I was like, man, we're all making cool music and we got to support each other. And now it's a trendy term, the gatekeeper term, but I never went down that road. It was like, dude, we're all sitting here dragging our equipment around, trying to get these gigs, trying to get these pits started. And then all of a sudden Cephalic Carnage just started to take over. And I'm telling you guys, your writing and whatnot got sick in a hurry. And so how long had you been playing guitar before you started really in Cephalic?
A year.
Wow.
And I had already had a lot of those ideas kind of year and a half. And when I met Leonard and they came to my house through Joaquin, and those guys came to my house, I'd never auditioned before. In fact, I was like, I'm not going to join another band. Like I've got this thing. I'm never going to use power chords. And
sure.
I've got just, I don't want to I want to do through composed songs. And I just want to do, bring Naked City into things and,
right.
and just, just kind of go fucking just do something I was just hell bent on originality.
Right.
Which just means that there's nothing really, just means ripping off lesser known bands in the I guess.
A lot of those lesser ones are the best ones, though.
Yeah.
Like I always dug your Bernie Rico with the bungle sticker on it. I was like,
yeah,
so
yeah, dude, that guitar got fucking stolen, man.
Oh no!
When Carrie, my ex-wife, and I bought our first house in the DU neighborhood, and this was right after I left Cephalic, and we were practicing in my garage. Vimana was, and Valenoff was using my garage to practice in too, because I basically fucking hijacked 3/4 of Valenoff and made that Vimana.
Right.
Because
good choice.
Yeah. So we can get into that later, but that guitar got stolen. And the thing about it was I had gutted it. It had been tour beaten down. So when they broke into my garage and they stole Eric Brown's drum set, who's playing drums for us now, Eric Brown, shout out. He plays in Necrogoblicon now. He was playing drums for us then. And his drum set got stolen.
Did you say Necrogoblicon?
Goblicon, yeah.
That's one of the coolest names I ever heard.
Yeah, I was like, I heard it, and it took me no, I haven't heard it.
Okay, now this is the best. This is the best metal podcast that might exist. Is John Goblicon's Right Now? So he just does comedians and stuff like that, dude. Like he had, oh my god, just check it out. Just
okay, I will.
Not no,
so I'll check it out.
Goblicon, yeah, it's a big. There is a goblin that sings, but they've really taken off. It's great. Eric is one of the best musicians I've ever jammed with. Just check out Right Now the podcast with the singer of Necrogoblicon, who was in fact a fucking goblin, and he's hilarious. I watch the podcast kind of religiously.
How long has that been around?
He's had that podcast, and what he's been doing with him, I want to say, is like 7-8 years, maybe longer.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I've ran across it and I'm just not remembering, but I will go check that out. The first ones he did were great, where he's interviewing like Wes Borland, and he's got what is the guitar player from Animals as Leaders?
Abasi?
Abasi, yeah. And he asked him the best. Well, I'm not trying to gush over the podcast on your podcast.
No, it's all good, bro.
But I'm proud of Eric, and so I'm proud of what he's done in his connection to them. You know, and so the best question he asked Tosin Abasi was, so, you've got fucking 8 strings on your guitars. What's next? 9 strings? How stupid is that? But dude, I watch it about once every 3 months, just that clip, and I just can't stop laughing. So.
Yeah. What's next? 9?
Yeah. So
10?
So that BC Rich was in the garage, and they stole it, and it was gutted. So it wasn't useful. It wasn't worth a penny to the pawn shop. And so I know that it probably just got like, thrown in the trash.
An alley somewhere.
Yeah.
To me, it has sentimental value.
Dude, and because you talked about the BC Rich Eagle with the bungle sticker and the Dead Horse sticker, and that was that was a guitar my dad gave me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, just
single tier. Yeah.
So when you guys really get rolling in like the writing and creative process with Sopholic, like, do you got any favorite memories from like those first recordings? Did you guys start pretty much with Otero right off the jump, or did you have a couple of other?
No, we used Mike. I can't remember his name. It was Bedlam Hell Studios. See, to go back then to Cephalic had the early origins of Cephalic with Tommy Clennon on bass, who was in Anathema. I'm sure you guys probably know Tommy. He was kind of a fixture in the scene. Tony, I'm sure, has probably run into Tommy through the Brian Hagman scene and Wretched Refuse and all that stuff, and Polish Mike like hung out with Hagman and all that stuff. So Tom Clinton played bass, Anthony Chavez played drums, Lawrence Erickson was a guitar player, and then Leonard, and then myself. They're all 25-ish Mexican dudes, and I was 14. I was a white guy playing their stuff. And so that a lot of stuff went down that summer. We changed our name to Sopholic. We opened up for Immolation and Goraphobia at the Mercury Cafe. And then, some stuff went down with my dad. Him and I got into like a big, throwdown, and Tommy Clennon and I got into a fight, that same thing. And he was drunk and shoved a sandwich in my face. And I was like, I'm taking my ball and going home. And so that's when I left and I moved back to Wyoming. And then, a year later, I ended up calling Leonard just to see what he's up to. And he's like, dude, like no one knew where you went or whatever. And so I was like, dude, I've been writing songs like fucking crazy, man. And he played me some stuff over the phone so there was another version of Cephalic then. And he's like, dude, listen to these songs. I'm like, dude, that's exactly like what I've been writing. Like, he's like, no, those are your riffs, bro. Like, we didn't know what happened to you. He's like, so the stuff Leonard and I were writing, he combined with a guy that was in the band then called Mike Trujillo. And Mike Trujillo was in the band called Dopehead. You might remember Fran.
Yeah.
Fran, you guys know Fran. Yeah. All those cats, Squid, and that whole scene. So when I moved back, I joined that version of Cephalic, and then we kind of and Mike Trujillo opened a lot of doors for me too, because I joined into like this Mr. Bungle Skosh band that we started called Dopehead. And so I kind of got more into the punk and ska scene in Denver too, which was vibrant at the time. Then that band just kind of fizzled out. Actually, we came out did a tour and kind of broke up here in Seattle. I was 18. And then we came back. Leonard and I were like, fuck, man, there was, one of the dudes was selling coke and stuff like that. And it was just kind of like, we just don't feel like we're getting what we need out of this. And so we ended up asking Anthony, the drummer, to stay. We found a guy named Doug Williams to play bass, who was kind of the hot shit guy around town. Doug Williams ended up, when we moved back to Kansas after he left us, and did the first Fortuitous Oddity demo, which was Cephalic's, call it the real kind of Cephalic demo that we did with Steve Goldberg and John Merriman. Doug Williams played on that. Doug ended up joining Origin after that. So we were kind of got incestuous a little bit there. So
it's a good band.
Through that, Anthony quit at a show, and I saw John Merriman and Steve Goldberg, who were in the band Molester, if you guys remember.
John
Otto Larson in that band too.
Otto Larson, Otto and fucking Dave, good old Undertaker, as Tommy Lennon would call it, Overgiver. So there's a whole other, and don't even get started about like Hideous Corpse and Evulsion.
Yeah.
And the real band that kind of like showed us what it could all be was Skeleton to God. And Jeff Kahn, and didn't he draw the Nick Wagman Death Squad logo?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I remember.
Yeah, I want to get Jeff Kahn on for sure, because when I was a kid, like my mom traveled around the States, and so I just always traveled around with her. And then, we spent some time in Tampa, and I was like 14, 15 years old. And there would be these parties at these like, they were like little storage units, and there was bands in the storage units, and it would and like, who knew what bands I was seeing? They were just all this. And I was like, oh, this shit is crazy. And then she was like, you're moving to Colorado to live with your dad. And I was like, no, like, and I remember getting there, and I was like, oh no, like there's no scene here. And I was just oh, and I was super, and then I remember I got handed Hideous Corpse and Undertaker at the same time. And I was like, oh, and I'm pretty sure my memory is, I think I might've seen Hideous Corpse open somewhere. I don't remember, but, and then by the time I realized who they were Skeleton of God. And, and to me, really and I was like, oh, not only is Colorado, but they have their own sound. Like they all this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh,
and
it was
immolation based.
Yes. Was kind of like, and I was like, freer, and then I was like, happy. Okay. I'm in a good spot, And, so
me too.
It was really cool that it was such a cool time back in the day. And I know you guys were such a huge part of it. And, and so, maybe fast forward a little bit. So how many years did you do in Cephalic? It was like, how much time did you do? It's not like you're in the joint. Like you like what, 10, 15 years?
I guess technically it was 17, and this was just pointed out to me recently. And I apologize for getting sidetracked. Just like you said.
Oh, you're fine.
Have a tendency to do this. And apologies in advance. Seattle is a really reclusive city.
Mm-hmm.
So other than a couple of coworkers or close friends or girlfriend or whatever, really don't talk to people very much. Mm-hmm. So it's just like a puppy waiting for his fucking dog to come home. I see you guys, I'm like, there's people, man. The Seattle freeze thing is legit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's legit thing.
Well, I'm in your weather pattern, dude. where I live. Yeah, I'm like, it's 8 hours from where I'm at, so I can go. We're about 10, so it's about 10 hours to Denver, 10 hours to Seattle. I'm like right in the middle. I'm like just where the music just sucks. It's like, you guys are still doing Pearl Jam, are you? Like, come on, man. But yeah, I'm in that weather pattern, and so it's the same. It's just like the same gray, and it's just cloudy, but instead of rain, it's snow. And,
well, I can tell you, I know why the music that this town is known for. Which, I mean, let's be honest, Seattle has the Ventures and Heart and Jimi Hendrix and Queensryche and Sabotage and those kind of bands.
Some really amazing music, honestly. Yeah. No shade towards Seattle. There's amazing.
No, I'm not throwing shade toward musical Seattle. I'm not shitting on the people in the metal scene here either. Just when you go down the street, it's a city that like reclusive people swamp to.
Sure.
That made no fucking sense. What is
that's good to know, actually, because I'm like, I moved to Idaho to get away from people. I'm like, they followed me. It's like
it's cramped. But it's just kind of a cruiser's thing. So I'm just going back to that. So if I tend to kind of jump around.
You're good, bro.
Seriously,
you're good.
And but you did ask the question. I don't want to get away from you asking about like Dave Otero and stuff like that, because I think that's really, really important.
Yeah.
So like we did the demo at a local studio, and then we got I was talking about how integrated Cephalic was into other scenes.
Right.
And there was this guy named Greg De Laurentiis, also known as Count D, who was in the rave scene and the early EDM stuff and the funk, and he had a band called Lord Word and the Disciples of Bass. And there was a guy named Mike Villano who played in Chaos Theory, and he was kind of trying to make him the big white rapper guy. And he would bring him in to that studio that we recorded Conforming to Abnormality in, the first album at where we used to rehearse. And, that's where we met like George Clinton, because Greg or Count D would fly in George Clinton to work on Mike Villano's record.
Really?
So, and like,
really? So you're telling me you met George Clinton during all that?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. That's awesome.
So like, the name drop is that's
a good drop. Yeah. Ding.
But Leonard can back all this up. Geraldo from Catheter can.
You don't need a backup, bro. You don't need a backup. We got you.
Which was funny too, because to side Zelda side trip from that. Like we were on tour with Shadows Fall and Shai Hulud and Terror once, and in Milwaukee playing the Rave, the Eagles Ballroom.
Odd tour.
Metal Fest was. Yeah. So we were in the basement. Imagine, and this was the peak Shadows Fall. So there was sold out shows of like, 1,000 kids a night or something like that. I mean, some of the secondary cities were probably 500 or 600 kids or whatever, but
sure.
The middle stage was fucking George Clinton and P-Funk. And so we knew some of the guys. So we went up there and kind of introduced Shadows Fall to like George Clinton. The main stage was fucking Los Tigres del Norte.
Wow. That's
so that tells
awesome.
you the different, like how many people, that holds. So you had the mariachi, and then you had the
what a cool scene.
That was cool.
Yeah. So
the fact that you can remember that is amazing on its own. You know what I mean? Like that.
I'm surprised too. There's probably about a gap of 10 years that I don't remember. We can get into that too, but
sure.
Yeah. So that's how we kind of knew that. Like Greg we knew through Tommy Glennon, and all of that. And that's how we got into that studio and recorded. I believe that's when Howard kind of started to come around.
Sure.
Cause I was thinking about this, cause I know Howard was technically in the band for a minute, and I know that there was some bad sauce there. I technically don't, and I mean this from all genuine honesty, I don't really remember him being in the band, but I do have a memory of him playing with us, and I'm not shitting on him at all. I'm not taking anything away from him because I know he worked hard for it, and I just don't remember him being there that much. And I know that's a point of contention for some people, and it was for a long time, for him and like his mom and all that. And, we never meant to be shitty about it. I was like, hey, you just didn't make the cut. And, we found this guy, Josh, and that's just how it's going to be. But so that was all at that time when we were recording Conforming, and Steve had gone. Steve was already who's already a really successful touring sound engineer for a lot of great bands, including Hatebreed and Mr. Bungle and Flaming Lips and all that stuff. And so he had already kind of dipped his toe into auto engineering and was kind of starting to show us all that. And then, we put out that Conforming to Abnormality CD. Of course, we didn't like it. We're like, ugh, just it's not good enough. But that was really when, John and Steve and I and Leonard had really locked into something.
Right.
And we couldn't pull, because Cephalic had a big local following before then, and Molester kind of did too. And then when those bands basically broke up and we came together and decided to keep it as Cephalic, we were made fun of. Like, molest Cephalic, they suck now. They lost all their heaviness. We couldn't pull 10 people to come see us, dude, in Denver. We were just like, fuck it. Then let's just woodshed this and start touring. And that's what we did. So we started going out in the minivan thinking we had something. Then you go to New York or Cleveland or, whatever shithole would have us for 10 people and see that local band. And they just kicked our asses. You're like, oh shit. Okay. Woodshed some more.
Yeah.
But, so much of what we did and created at that time and how it went there was not only just a work ethic, but I have to throw so much fucking love to John Merriman. Like, the incredible drumming that guy had already had.
Yeah.
And Steve Goldberg's amazing guitar playing and the talents that those two had. And the fact that Leonard and I could come in there and we could gel together. And that's a lot of that is just so much thanks to John and his incredible talent. Like, there was nothing. My imagination could just explode on this fucker.
Yeah.
And he could do it. And he could take it further. And he could make sure that we were being more literate musicians, So,
yeah. That's important, especially for this style of music. Like we've talked about in a prior podcast, like Vic was bringing up like, oh, how hard I was on him. And I'm like, dude, I'm hard on drummers, man. I'm not that good of a guitarist. So I need these drums to make me sound good. We got to be in the pocket.
Yeah. So
that's wild.
And for me, I had to really step up my game to play with those guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, John really stepped up his game from Molester when he went to Cephalic.
Yeah,
because John was pretty green in Molester, wasn't he?
I remember I was like, oh, here we go. This is going to be cool.
Right.
Because I knew he was good, but I didn't know he kind of went ape shit on everything.
Yeah, and I guess Steve and I had a side project before that. I did the Ad Nauseam thing with Steve before that, so that was what kind of brought Goldberg and I together, and to already have a vibe. And then just the three of us, the four of us, to say, just really fucking, we were down to jam 4 to 5 nights a week, 5-6 hours a night, spend a 2-hour, 3-hour practice on a 10-second transition kind of shit, and I'm sure, as you guys know, just keep working on the part that makes you fucking giggle.
Right. Yeah, I remember once, like I don't remember if it was like some kind of after party or something, but you told me once something, and I sorry if I butcher this, but you were like, oh man, because I think the guy from Butcher Shop. I think our band was doing fairly well locally, but
you were.
Nobody knew who the fuck we were outside of that. And you were like, oh, maybe, we should have spent more time locally, and I was like, are you fucking crazy? Like, dude, that is the way, because, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have any more bands, because it's like, look, if we're not going to take this on the road, then I don't want to do it. It's like, you gotta just, cause Denver was cool and we have a lot of cool stories, but to be in grindcore and death metal in like the mid 90s was not a great scene. It just wasn't. No, it was all, and it's like, to all the Pantera bands, I'm sorry, I love you, but it was like everybody and their dog was Pantera, and it was so hard. There was like a couple of good, intricate bands that weren't trying to follow nothing and just had their own style, and then there was all this homogenous stuff. And
what a great way to put that too. The homogenization of that. And then it was the trend following thing too. And you nailed it with the Pantera thing. Like I never had to listen to fucking Tool or Pantera because they were played everywhere. Because what were we doing back then before we could get into bars? We were going to keg parties, and that's where it was all founded up on.
Right. It's like if I hear any more Sublime, I'm gonna blow my brains out. Like, I like Sublime, but
sure. Well, two funny things with that is I'm in the Cowboys from Hell video for Pantera.
Oh, really? That's an old video.
Yeah, because that was filmed at Joe's Garage, that place in Texas that we used to go to. So that was in that, but just before I moved to Denver, and we'd go because there was girls, and I could basically walk there kind of from my house. It was about an hour walk, but we'd do it, and we'd spend every weekend there. So we kind of just accidentally ended up there. I think Dead Horse was the opening band, and I think Rigor Mortis was the other one, which
Dead Horse is a great band.
Yeah. So, so, you know, and then the funny thing is, when we hired Josh to come play for us, which takes us into the next evolution of Cephalic, was bringing Josh on board. That kind of opened up a whole other aspect of our live show and just kind of brought so much more personality and vibrance and humor into the band, which we needed. We were missing that element. And you know, shout out to him. But he was actually playing in a Sublime. He was the singer guitar player in a Sublime cover band.
Oh, wow. I mean, dude, it was a different world back then, bro. It was a different world.
It really was. Yeah.
Yeah. Josh could throw down though. Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. He was great. As probably one of the most intelligent and definitely the most humorous, fucking funny guy I've ever known. And the impressions he can do is just off the wall, you know? So,
and so there was so much, you know, and forgive me because my, you know, it's a blur kind of back then because everybody was doing their things, and you know, we're all just trying to get our, you know, get our art out into the world.
Yeah.
But I remember I felt like the Otero stuff came a little sooner, but maybe it really didn't. It was a little bit later. Like, how many albums did you guys put out before Otero, and then have they been all Otero after that?
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of ties us into when Josh joined, and then we started touring, and then what had happened was we got, God, I'm a piece of shit. So we had gotten, Conforming had kind of a label called Headfucker in Italy picked it up.
Oh, I remember that label. Yeah, they were looking at us.
Yeah. Dude, and because they wanted Skeleton of God. You know, but Cephalic was, you know, that's a joke I still make to people to this day. Cephalic was kind of the Dollar Tree Relapse band. You wanted Dillinger, Escape Plan, and Nile, and Mastodon, and Neurosis on your tour. You couldn't quite get them, but you'd get the Relapse promotional thing if you got this wacky little fucking grind.
I remember I was like, I don't know if I want to be on a label called Headfucker. I just like who's working for who here? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead, I got on a label called Final Cut, and that's a whole nother story, man. Like, the indie labels are not a good gig. I'm just not.
And I know the Final Cut story a little bit, and we can get into that.
But we'll keep going with other stuff. It's about you, bro.
So while it's about us, where it's about the Denver thing. Which
Amen.
And then we can follow this wave all the way through to like Chemist and Blood Incantation and stuff, you know, later.
Yeah.
Which I'm all proud of. But like, so that Conforming thing kind of just, the response to it surprised us. And I remember going out to Milwaukee Metal Fest, and how we got onto that was it's too long of a story to get into, but how we got into that was kind of, you know, me calling the promoter of Milwaukee Metal Fest and saying Green Bay and Denver in the Super Bowl. We were recording it there, and I was like, hey man, and I got his number from someone who shouldn't have given it to me. And he was not happy that I called him at first. And I was like, so, you know, if Denver beats Green Bay, we get to go to Milwaukee Metal Fest. We don't pay the $1,000 because it used to be $1,000 for 100 tickets or 10 tickets or whatever. And we get on the fucking rave stage at like 7:00 on a Saturday. And if Denver loses, then we pay you $1,000, and we get 3 other bands to pay you $1,000. So for us, it was always about bringing our friends along.
Sure.
We always wanted to, and I know that probably sounds, attaboyish, but we always wanted Denver to succeed.
Yeah.
We always wanted our friends' bands to succeed. And we're like, it's kind of a win-win. So bam, fucking Elway finally pulled one off. We got in Milwaukee Metal Fest. Yeah.
What a cool
we
story.
We got on that fucking stage at like 5. It was probably more like 5 or something like that. And he had to put us on the flyer and everything. Conforming had come out. We didn't have a bass player yet. Steve and I, for whatever reasons, cornrowed our hair. And of course, people made fun of us for the corn thing, the KORN, whatever. And it fucking, the whole weekend just like blew our mind. Like the crowd went crazy. People like were like just loving the Conforming record. Labels were talking to us. We were meeting people. getting rushed. And like, I remember meeting Dennis from Macabre and Lance from Macabre, and they're like, dude, that album just blew my mind. And we're like, we didn't know what was going on. None of this was expected, you know? So from that, came the Relapse contract. I tried to get us, just to record with Matt Bayless up here in Seattle, which was doing Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, but at the time was Burned by the Sun and Botch and Mastodon. And, they laughed at me. Like, yeah, no. And I was like, well, what about festival in New Orleans where Soylent Green records, where Crowbar records, where Acid Bath records? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. We can give you $9,000 for 9 days. And so we went down there and did that album, live over 9 days, which just isn't really done anymore. And you know, I'm told bands like Blood Incantation do that now, which is great. So yeah, but we fucked it up, fellas. We went to New Orleans and partied.
Hard not to do that.
4 or 5 in the morning and go to the studio at 2 and we fucked up some guitars and we couldn't get it mixed right. And we walked out of the studio fucking hating it, just listening to it going, this is garbage. Like we really fucked this up. And we fucked up we hadn't signed the contract with Relapse yet. And they called us up and bitched at us on the phone really hard that we hadn't signed the contract. So we signed the contract, grabbed as many different colored pens as we could, thinking we were fucking cute.
Yeah. And
then we loaded the fucking contract with like Tootsie Rolls in a manila envelope, sent it to them. The Tootsie Rolls fucking melted. Envelope. Oh no. And we got another screaming phone call. Like, you guys are not, so our first foray into Relapse was us dropping the ball, just thinking we're fucking cute, you know, just not really just thinking it through, you know? So we got a harsh lesson. Here's how you got to be more professional. So out of that came opportunities and just kind of growing with the Relapse thing came the first tour, Dillinger's Escape Plan during Calculating Infinity and
that's a good one.
You know, playing show with Neurosis and just starting to get more tours and starting to watch it grow, you know, and then the other people coming to shows, getting summoned to Slipknot shows to meet Joey and, you know, and Phil from Pantera bringing us and saying, I thought, you know, I love your band, man. You know, just this shit was like insane. While still receiving a lot of hate.
Yeah.
The internet was bubbling then. So a lot of people, you knew everyone that hated your band. And Cephalic was a band that had a lot of haters. So from that whole experience, we were like, we won't do that again. And then I think we were playing a show in Cheyenne, and I'm pretty sure Than and Keith from Dead Speak, who are great friends, shout out to my boys there, had brought the Cerberus demo, and they played it in the van, and I heard it, and I was like, wow, like, where the fuck did you record this? Well, you know, apparently the fucking guitar player singer dude, like, has his own studio in his mom. And I was like, the dude in the band did this? And I remember fucking like grabbing Goldberg. I was like, dude, listen, like, it's a local kid that did this. And he's like, fuck. I was like, we got to meet him, dude. Like, what if this is what we've been looking for? And we can, like, this kid has fucking, like, this is something. This is this kid, if this is the real situation. And then Than and Keith were telling us, like, yeah, dude, fucking Cerberus is great. You know, and Jeremy Ports had started to play for him then. So that incestuous thing kind of started back then. Sure. And then so we sought Dave out. We're like, we got to meet this kid. And at that time we were recording a 60-minute Doom song that we only recorded one part. It was an 18-minute song called The Halls of Amenti. And we contacted Dave, went out to Boulder. Yep, you're right. He lived in his mom, had the studio in his mom's basement. And probably half of us like, yes, this is going to be the great thing. The other thing is like, yes, we're going to fucking just mold the shit out of this kid. And we fucking, I'm not picked on him, but like, we knew we could like, he was nervous. We knew we could kind of, fuck with him a little bit because we thought we were comedians.
Sure.
And I remember like, Dave had these microphones and stuff, and Josh and I were taking Doritos bags with the expensive microphone and holding it over the toilet to try to get sounds. He's like, don't do that. Oh, that's too expensive. And we just like, don't do that. You mean this? Like, that's the kind of shit. And Dave's mom would bring cookies down and
dope.
And we were watching him work, and I don't remember a whole lot of specifics, and the guys and Dave included will probably have a more accurate description of the situation. But I just remember thinking, this fucking kid is brilliant. Like, he's really smart. And this is the digital revolution.
Yeah.
Like this, we saw it. And of course, Steve being versed in that stuff and being the first one of us that was, more technologically savvy. And he was into this, he was going to school for the studio and we're like, oh man, this is something. We liked it a lot.
Yeah.
And so at that point, we told Relapse that we wanted to use this kid that we just met and we could do it in our own studio. We went back to work with Greg De Laurentiis, the guy that had the first studio who showed us, all that. And so we got with him and decided to design our own recording studio with Dave. And we spent like 2 months or something, recording Lucid Interval with Dave Otero. It was the first album for him. It was the first kind of thing we did. That was kind of our own. And, it was from then on, he was member number 5. And
awesome.
we loved him and he was making us better tenfold. And we were able to really experiment and get what we wanted out of the situation and giving Dave some money and some time to kind of up his studio and stuff. And so from then on, it was, the 2-headed monster of Dave Otero and Cephalic Carnage is born.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great story. It was a long venture, but worth it at the end. Like, no, it's, I've
never talked about these things before, so.
Yeah. And it's really cool. I sent an email out to Dave and, we'll see if he responds. I'm like, hey man, I'd love to get you on because I've only met him a couple times and one, he was in Cerberus and somebody was like, dude, you got to see this band Cerberus, dude.
Yeah. They're great.
I was like, dude, these dudes are actually pretty sick. And then I heard the recording too. And I was like, wow, this is freaking great. And then he was like, yeah, dude, I think I'm just going to go do my studio now and like done with Cerberus. I don't remember exactly how it went down or how he was telling me about it. But then, and the next thing you know, I heard your recording. It was freaking just blown away. I'm like, holy shit. And then by the time I was ready to record, I couldn't afford it. I was like, wow, that happened fast.
Well, and at the time he was touring with us as our sound guy too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So at that point, we got put on, Relapse put us on our first big tour, which is opening for fucking Creator and Destruction.
Yeah. Awesome.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
6 weeks. And the good thing is the opening band was a band called December from Reno, Nevada, who was on Earache, who had worked with Devin Townsend. And we did a 2-week tour through Canada, which is one of the first death metal bands outside of Canadian royalty, Gorguts or Cryptopsy or Neuraxis to kind of,
I know
do that,
well.
to go straight from East Coast to West Coast 2 weeks and do it. And December was with us. So by the time that we got to do the first shows in New Jersey, opening up for Creator and Destruction, Dave and Cephalic in December, we were one team and we were a well-oiled machine. And so we had heard that, this tour manager doesn't fuck around. Like you got to be ultra professional. And Gordon and Carl and Andy from Relapse were like, fuck, they're probably like tripping out. They're like, these dudes are not ready for this shit. But we did it. We did it, man. We fucking played the game. We've been touring long enough. We knew that 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off.
Right.
And by the second week, we're riding in the bus with Millie Petroza, a Creator, and fucking talking religion and, doing coke and shots of whiskey and stuff. So it was fucking great. Yeah, and Dave was the sound guy that whole time.
Wow, that's awesome. And so of that time, I mean, obviously all this stuff, you got to be super proud of all of it. Is there a moment that you're most proud of this kind of this time here? Is it maybe like the Finding Dave and what you guys created on that or
you know what? Now that you say that, and like Danny Walker, who I work with in Vimana now, if you know who Danny Walker, the drummer, is, he actually asked me that question just a couple days ago out of the blue, and I was like, "Dude, have you fucking been drinking? Like, what? Where does this come from?" So I was like, "Shit, I don't know." Like, Xenosapien was and this is not going to go over well.
Sick.
Was pretty much my solo record. We weren't really collaborating as a band anymore at that point, and not that I wrote the entire thing. Like there was I wrote all but 2 songs on that record, and just working with Dave. It was basically Dave and I just kind of putting a record together at first, So when you say that, Lucid does kind of come together as the biggest moment, as the moment that we were, just finding that we could dive into complete creative freedom. Relapse believed in us. We were getting good reviews. We were selling T-shirts. The tours were coming. Dave was announced to the world, and we kind of just found this thing, and everything like locked in. And not that it wasn't without a lot of work, not that it wasn't without a lot of sacrifice. I had just had my first kid. I was married, you know, and that same thing for a couple of the other guys. Thank God for Rock Bottom Brewery for, you know, letting me have a job for all those years, on and off the tour. And that was making enough to put my wife through college. And so she could handle that. And so, those were sacrifices made by a lot of people, and the periphery and by proxy. And so all in, I would say that that's probably one of the moments we had arrived. Of course, it's never enough when you're in it.
No.
And I remember we were at some show with Creator and Destruction. We were so happy. Like, it's probably Brave Words and Bloody Knuckles or some Canadian magazine. And we saw the fucking album came out. Relapse would, a lot of things labels did. They would pair you with another band. So they put out 2 albums at the same time and then you have the 6-week promotional period. And fucking, we got put out with Niles' Black Scenes of Vengeance. We're like, motherfucker. Like, what the fuck, man? You don't compete with, you know, like, we're going to get banned.
That was a good album.
Yeah. And they were huge. They were the biggest thing in death metal at the time, you know, like, probably selling as much as Cannibal Corpse or whatever. We just opened it up and just saw a full page ad for Black Seeds of Vengeance. And we were mentioned on it and we were like, fuck that. Like, I look back on that and I'm kind of embarrassed by it, you know, that we called Relapse for a meeting, you know. So all of that is to say is no matter, you kind of get caught in the machine to where once you start doing good and you want to do better, like it's almost not enough again, you know?
Yeah, it's just drugs.
Tell me about it. So.
Yeah. And that's wild. And so, you know, there's so many spin-offs, and one thing is I've been doing these podcasts, and you know, we're not very good at it. We're still pretty green. And so having great. Someone
and I've kidnapped your whole podcast. I won't shut the fuck up.
No, but this is the point of it right here. But what happens is I'm staring at this little clock and I'm like, oh, I got to keep this in time. But I'm more than happy to keep going if you're willing to keep going, because I've got a bunch of stuff. It's like, so I've always been curious because I've heard rumors about this, and this is just a little sidebar. So when you guys would go in, let's say, okay, you're established now, you're getting your label money, you've got your engineer, you guys are kind of set, things are moving. So when you would go into the studio, would you just come in with a pile of riffs, or do you guys already kind of have your songs and it's like, all right, we're going to put 8 to 10 on this album?
Up until Xenosapien, the last record that I did, that I was on, it was all rehearsed. It was all, we could have done it live.
Right.
Everything was
just
put together.
Tight. We're ready. Let's go record it.
We're fucking ready. We have these songs. Everybody knows them. Like we're a high functioning working band.
Right.
And we love what we do. And we know that we've, you know, got to be on it. And plus too, when you go out there and you do really good, and then you like, it's not enough thing. Like, we got to practice. We got to get this down. I'm obviously a very excitable guy. And so I always want to practice. I always want to get through the ideas. So like, Lucid was very, very, very planned. I mean, we wrote in the studio too, kind of improvisational, which you can tell those are throwaway songs, but like Anomalies, which is my personal favorite Cephalic record, all in. We were a full band then. So we went all in, and, you know, we were all rehearsed. Xeno was the first album that, I had just nobody knew the songs really. We had 2-3 songs that we knew together as a band. And then the rest was, okay, so we told, you know, Relapse we had an album, and we really don't. But Zac's got songs, right? Or, you know, I'm like, yeah, I've been working on shit. At that time I used Power Tab. You guys remember Power Tab? Where now it's Guitar Pro, which is so much better.
Yeah. Power Tab. I've never heard of that. I only know Guitar Pro.
Yeah. So this was a precursor to that. And I didn't have to write in correct time signatures, which would, you know, Dave would be like, you know, this is all the wrong time signature. I'm like, dude, it's just a fucking metronome. I'm like, I don't care about that shit. Let's just get it down, because I had never done that before. Sure. We didn't know what all the time signatures were. We weren't even aware that like when I saw someone put tab on with a song called Endless Cycle of Violence and it said 27/8, I'm like, that's not fucking right. 27/8 my ass. And then I would go through and count it correctly, having been a little bit more literate musician. And Guitar Pro was something that taught me how to do that. And Power Tab taught me how to do that.
Sure.
More so than anything else. And I'm like, motherfucker, that's a 27/8. Jesus. So everything up until Xenosapien and was really a full band going in there. Songs are done. We know exactly how we want this. We know what the artwork is. We know what the lyrics are. And that was the one that kind of the copy and pasting and long distance thing kind of started at Xenosapien. And I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy doing it like that. Now it's how I do everything.
Yeah, because that's my follow-up. Because so with all of those said, at this point in the game, what do you like better? So
always in a room with a band, man. I always want a full room in a band. I want to collaborate. I'm an endless well of shitty riffs and half-baked ideas, and I will throw them at the wall as hard and as loud as I can. But if I'm not collaborating, I don't know how you guys might be the same way. I'm going to end up coming with the same shit. I'm going to arrange the same. It's going to sound the same. The ideas and the magic and the alchemy happen in the practice room for me. That is my favorite part of being in a band, bar none, is rehearsing, So if I'm not doing that, then it's just like, so right now Vimana is still on hold until I move back to Denver. So Danny can start coming in, and Nick and I and whoever, the other guitar player, we're still looking. We can all come in and do that as a band and get it right as a band, because the Vimana EP that I sent you, Danny and I have never played together. I just recorded the songs and sent that.
And I'm gonna save my comments for that for a couple more questions here. But fuck, dude, holy shit. It's interesting. I find this interesting because like now, Tony and I are basically doing a recording project, and it's all online, and we're doing, our Playgrat thing. And it's hard, dude. It's hard. And it's like, I don't really miss a lot of the, being married to 5 dudes and all of that stuff and piled in a van smelling each other's shit. It's like, but I do miss that, and it's like being able to just collaborate as a unit and hash things out and throw riffs out. And so now we're in this weird like loop where it's like, okay, I'll email you Tony riffs, and then he'll listen to them, and then he'll email them back to me. And the thing is like life happens, you're working. Well, I'll fall in love with all of my riffs. And then he's like, well, what do you think about these ideas? And I'm like, those ideas suck. Like, I already have this. This is the song is done.
With my shit.
Yeah. And it's like, and so no, we have to. And so I'm doing better, right? So I'm really trying to like, okay, as like the producer kind of role here, it's like, all right, I promise everybody's ideas, I will marinate and listen to them. And man, it's a pain in the ass, but there are rewarding things. We're having a good time, but listen to you talk about it. I was like, yep, that's the part I miss, is like out of all of it, that and the gigs, I'll never be able to replace that adrenaline dump of being on stage, and then obviously, care to just random question, because I know you've done some tours. You've been pretty much worldwide. I mean, you've done Japan, you guys done South America. South America's got to be where it's at, right?
Just everywhere, like anywhere that you go into like that kind of southern hemisphere from Mexico on down is just the same thing when you kind of do some of the, and we never got to do like the like Asia market has opened up now. And so by the time I stopped, like, with Japan and Australia, but like China was opening up, South Korea was opening up, Polynesia was opening up, and these places were just kind of, and I was like, damn, we're so close. So yeah, they're all crazy because they absorb it in a different way, even though the internet has kind of leveled the playing field on how everything is consumed and absorbed and regurgitated back to you, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I think you can see it online too. We played in Quito, Ecuador, and they said 70,000 people. And none of us wanted to believe that. But if you just look at a sea of brown and black hair and just going nuts, and we are not a band was never a band that was meant for those big stages. I don't think we translate well, but we were trying because we were doing bigger and bigger tours with Hatebreed and Cradle of Filth and Killswitch Engage, and so we were getting better and better.
70K. That's a number right there. That's it. Well, it's a festival.
Look at it. I don't. It was the Quito. Oh man, I forget it now. It's if you look up like Quito, Ecuador, Cephalic on YouTube, you can see it.
Oh, I'm trying
to find you.
I don't think it's anywhere near 70,000. Goldberg was like, that's probably like 10. So I'm like, somewhere in between that, but it's a lot of people. And I just remember looking out, like, it doesn't do it justice. No way.
Gosh, I would love to go to South. I'm like, I want to move there. Like, and I don't know, our little gig, our little playground thing is like, it's blowing up in Argentina. I'm like, dude, we got to go to Argentina. Like, I'm telling you, dude, like the kids are crazy for metal down there, you know? And it's like, I gotta do it. But, so Japan, Australia, you mentioned Australia, Russia.
The last show I ever played with Cephalic was in Moscow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I left the band after that tour, and that's on YouTube as well. You can't find a whole lot of YouTube videos of the era of, you know, when I was playing, because the iPhones were just barely coming out, and they wouldn't let you record at shows back then. So there's not, you know, the superior lineup of like, and look, man, I want to go out on the record and just say, the version of Cephalic Carnage that is there now is made up of some of my best friends.
Yeah.
And like Brian Hopper.
Freaking slamming, dude. It's a good band, dude.
Dude,
amazing.
And Brian Hopper took my spot. I fucking love the guy. He's one of my best friends. He's one of the best dudes in the world. He's a spectacular guitar player, and he's been like a really, really good friend. I remember when I left, like texting him too, like, dude, if you need any help at all, just let me know. And he's just a great dude and a great guitar player.
So,
I'm not saying that to get pumped,
do you care to elaborate? Is it personal? Like what made you make that decision?
John and I weren't working well together at all. I didn't like the way that was put together. I think we were just kind of overworking with each other.
Yeah.
There was, I can't remember any particular incidents, but I didn't like the way Xeno came together. I didn't like the lack of rehearsing. I didn't think we were firing on all cylinders like we could live. I was just starting to see things that I didn't like. And I wanted us to be the best version of ourselves. They're going to have a different version of the events, and I'm not talking shit on anybody.
Sure.
I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the way, you know, Leonard and I had some huge creative differences on Xeno. And there was one time when, Jason Netherton from Misery Index, Old Dying Fetus, his dad lived in Denver. He lived near Stapleton. And so every Christmas he'd kind of come and hang out. We were recording Xeno around that time. Dave, hadn't moved into the studio he's in now. So, some temporary thing, because we recorded Xeno at our own studio, and Dave would come once a week and just kind of, you know, tighten things up.
Nice.
But he did all the drums and stuff, which was just, to me, I have a terrible memory of it. I did not like it at all. I wasn't happy. I'm probably being a diva, but, and then, you know, Leonard and I the creative differences, I wasn't gelling with those two at all.
It's bands, bro. It's no fault of
theirs.
Dude.
It's just I was probably concerned about something else. Who knows? I, you know, everyone wants to think that they were, you know, the victim and getting bullied or whatever. And it was just kind of doing a lot of this, and I just wasn't happy.
Because that's a lot to walk away from.
And the band I started, you know, was the, you know, main songwriter for, or just most of the song. I want to say that so correctly.
Sure.
You know,
I got you.
I wrote more of riffs and songs than anybody else for sure, but that's probably because I just jammed them down their throat more than anybody else. Who knows?
Right.
Of the songs that Steve, that we put together, that we wrote together, they were better than anything I wrote solo. I think some of the best songs that were Cephalic ever written were written just by Steve. You know, a song like Wraith on Anomalies, that's all Goldberg, and in Vile Form, that's all Goldberg. I mean, those are fucking spectacular songs, some of my favorites. And then once we got on the road, I was just like, man, we're not crazy anymore. Like, I was like, we've got to hit it. And behind us were this new scene was coming up. You know, we toured with Necrophagists, we toured with Beneath the Massacre, we've toured with, you know,
fantastic bands.
And from that, you know, bands like Arcspire were right around the corner.
Yeah.
And we weren't, and not to try to like compete with the Uber tech stuff, but I was like, there are kids that started where Necrophagist and Cephalic and Dillinger Escape Plan are left off.
You know, you grew up listening to, you know, Black Sabbath, Metallica, thrash metal. They grew up listening to you.
Yeah.
You know,
well, you know, so that's neither here, but so I'm like, we need to fucking kill it. And we're on a tour with Black Dahlia Murder and Psychroptic. And I was just like, I wasn't feeling it. I was pissed off every night. And I was just like, I'm not feeling it. I just like, we're not doing it. And maybe I was hyper focusing, on that. And there was, plenty of fucking, whiskey and beer involved too. And I'm sure.
Well, it's definitely a personality type too. And, as someone that can kind of share that look, I can get maniacal with my goals. And when you don't have 5 other people that are in the exact same maniacal headspace, it can start to spiral.
I'm glad you said that, because that's what happened.
Yeah, because it's not a negative towards anybody or it's just some people. It's just, the drive isn't, like, obviously look at how successful they still are. They're a very driven band, and a fan, and their new music is sick as hell. So, absolutely. But my point is as I get what you're trying to say without, it's like, it's not a negative. It's just, it's sometimes personalities just clash, and it's like you grow apart.
And I wasn't happy. I didn't want to just start ghostwriting or just sitting, copying, pasting riffs together. I wanted to be a band.
Yeah.
And plus I had 2 kids at home and a wife. And a house.
That's a factor too. That was the deal with me. It was like my last gig was, cause I never toured any, we were never signed on any big labels. We got stuck on an indie label, and then we were kind of stuck on that for a while. And so we were doing, we were going to other states and Cali and piling the van and doing all that type of stuff. But, I remember jumping in, it was like a band called Pyrexia. And I remember I really thought they were like kind of heavy hitters in my book. I thought they're a really cool band, and they had been like ripped off like 5-6 nights in a row. And we jumped in on the end of like their tour or whatever. And I remember we were like down in the Springs, and they were like ready to fist fight in the street. And just starving, ripped off, and there's nobody to take it out on except for the people you love the most. And I remember standing out there, and it was the same thing. I had a kid at home. I was dabbling and recording my own stuff, and then my wife was about to have our second kid, and I was like, you know what, boys, I'm done. Like, and then, and allude to what you were saying before too, like with the collaboration. That's the thing, because I could do all this shit myself right now. I've got everything I need, and I'm very creative, and Tony's the same way. He's got a little project studio, and we work better bouncing this stuff off of each other. It's like, I'm more like, give me some, because once you give me like just throw the worm out there, I'm running with it, dude. And it's like, and sometimes it's so I feel you on that. So here we are down your path in a very condensed version to the new band Vimana. So you've had Vimana going for a while now. 2017.
No, it was the band. I basically, when I quit Cephalic, I had an album written, and I called one of our best friends down, of kind of collective, one of our friends, Zac Jefferson. And I was like, hey dude, I haven't told anybody yet, but I'm quitting the band, because we had a studio. And then you guys have probably been to a couple parties at the old Cephalic warehouse.
I'm sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, we had the studio up there and the rehearsal space and a chill space, and it was all Steve Goldberg's family that just let us do that. And then we fucking basically, I don't even think we paid rent there ever. They were just, that's a longer story in itself, but thanks to the generosity of the Goldberg family, we were allowed to do that. And then we had the print shop there too. And I went in there with Zac Jefferson and said, hey, I need one of us here. That's, I'm quitting the band, and I'm just going to come here and kind of take minimal stuff. And I'm going to take the songs I have on the fucking hard drive, and, kind of petty in that sense. But you're like, you can't have my stuff. I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
All right.
So that was, that was that. And I immediately called, Dave, and told him the situation after I'd sent, I quit via email, because, that's still a point of contention with them. But I sent the same email out to our management, to our lawyer, and to the band, and just said, hey, best of luck. Because I was ready to fight. I was ready to kick and scream and just fucking throw down. I was over it. I also didn't want to get talked into not leaving, because we were about to do a tour with Mayhem and Marduk. There was another Japanese tour lined up with Destruction, I believe, and we're supposed to have a new album done. And I was like, if I do those 2 tours, that means I got to commit to the album, and I'm just not going to do it. I think it's just better just to let them go. Like I can't improve it. And I think the best thing to do is to me leave and then let them kind of take it from there. And hopefully that's a kick in the pants that they needed. And it was. So I called Dave and asked for Jeremy Ports' number because I knew Jeremy Ports could fucking do it. And then met with Jeremy. He introduced me to Mike, a guy named Mikey Reeves. And I was like, holy shit, this fucking kid. So he introduced me to Veil and Off. And Veil and Off, and I had listened to that, and I was like, this is exactly, because I was kind of wanting to go do something different too, you know, a little bit within the confines. And so that's kind of how Vimana was born. We were called Collapse at first. And that's why the first Vimana EP is called the Collapse EP, which you can find, which is just as extreme, you know, it was kind of going to that faster, more extreme kind of like harder stuff, you know, that was kind of Cephalic, kind of some of the stuff Cephalic wasn't hitting, but you can hear the songwriting in there. And then kind of hit that hard for a little bit. Then within a year that I had left the band, I was headed for a divorce because I found out that my marriage kind of worked, that we were on again, off again on the road. And I decided that I wanted out of that too. And boy, did I got punished for that one, boys. I got punished for that one. And at that time too, let's get real, man. Because of that, and I was very, very kept it close to the chest. I think people thought my drinking had escalated big time. And I think when people saw me out, like kind of in the scene or at shows, I think they thought it was, oh, he's not in Cephalic anymore. He's tore up about that. I was really tore up about kind of like how my family life was dwindling. It had nothing to do with the band. And how the kids were kind of getting weaponized in what was going to be a very, very, very ugly divorce. And that just shattered me. And it just kept me, you know, just so I started drinking more and more and more and heavy. I'd go through bouts of heavy drinking and then sober up, and then I'd get DUI, and then, you know, so it was fucked. But all by my own hand. And so Vimana kept getting pushed off to the side because the divorce stuff kept like killing my will to like fucking want to play music. Yeah. Or my own choices, or my own, what was then becoming alcoholism, full-blown alcoholism. That was killing my desire to want to play music, to the point to where finally the divorce had gotten so bad, and then the restrictions on the divorce and 2 years in court, I fucking moved to Seattle to kind of just get away from her. And I was like, I need to get dry. I need to just kind of read. And I did. And I got sober in Seattle, and kind of came back to kick ass. And I moved back to Denver, and we got Vimana started again. And then fucking COVID happened and slowed that down. We lost a kid to cancer. We lost our niece to cancer, which we
sorry to hear
raised
that.
As our own kid. Yeah. And I ended up getting 2 DUIs in a year after being sober for a while. And I did some serious time in county jail for those. Yeah. And that kind of reset the whole thing. And then then COVID, luckily I was in jail for COVID. I was finding that during COVID. So you're like, wow. I was kind of thankful too to hit county jail for those 2 DUIs, because I think it was the thing that had I been continued to drink the way I was during COVID, I actually think I would have drank myself to death. Like I don't, yeah. And some people did. There's stories of even like Tommy Clennon and other people that passed away during that time, to where I think some of the drugs and alcohol got to the best of them with nothing to fucking do. And I was on a furlough from my job as well. And so I kind of think that saved my life, to be honest with you. Was it fun? Fuck no. Was it? It's a whole other story in itself. But so then I was seeing a girl at the time. We decided to get married, and we moved back to Seattle after COVID because she signed a 2-year contract with the hospital. And so I ended up coming back here, and then decided to pursue Vimana again after COVID. And her and I just didn't click after a while too. I literally just signed divorce papers 2 weeks ago with her. Wow. And so, yeah. So, I mean, all that's a good thing. That's not a negative thing. It's not like that either. I just, it just happens, just kind of grow apart. There wasn't an ugly divorce. There wasn't anything crazy that you're just kind of like, yeah, it's not there. And I'm like, I've already been through something really bad, and I don't want to hang on. Once I think I want to go, or it's not working, or there's red flags, like, let it go.
Sure.
You hang on just to do that. That's not healthy either. So, and all of that, you know, and this is why I'm an advocate for this too. And I talk about within the Vimana stuff too. We'll go heavily into like addiction and recovery and mental health,
right,
and how fucking important that is, especially now with, you know, you can't fucking not swipe your phone every day without seeing political outrageousness.
Right.
You know, wherever you sit on the Trump thing, he fucking keeps you glued to your fucking phone all goddamn day, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Whether you're hating him or loving him.
Our last single, you know, I dive into that a little bit, because normally I've always done guitar and everything, but now I've always done like backup vocals and stuff, but now I have some stuff to say whether people like it or not, but it's important to me, and I'm working hard to be like very legible. And in the last song, it's like, you know, this called I Am the Science, but it's just about how all of this shit is like, whether it's science and technology all the way across everything from like what they do to our food to the, you know, the way that, whether it's soil stuff or seed production or cloud seeding, and then you get into the scrolling and all, like we're all in this algorithm, and it just keeps us, you know, like everybody's like, I like the Jets, I like the Giants, you know, and it's just like we're all this tribal thing,
so unhealthy,
and it's like, oh, here, have an orange guy that just keep everybody separated, and it's like it's kind of making people crazy, and I'm dealing with that right now. You know, I had to go down to Denver. You know, it's a little personal. I try not to talk about personal stuff on it, but I'll just say, my mom is having a breakdown, and she just decided she didn't want to pay bills and participate in society. And so one of my friends called me up and said, hey, you know, your mom's like homeless in Denver, right? I'm like, what? Wow. So I just jammed down there to rescue her literally 2 weeks ago. So I'm trying to deal with her and do like all these other things. It's been really tough. And I'm really starting to have a huge view on how there is a lot of psychological issues right now that our system just does not take care of. They don't take care of the hospital system. There's like the whole thing. It's like, well, you want to know why there's so many homeless people? Because nobody can. And like, as a family member, you're trying to, but they're so broken that it's like, even as a family member, it's almost impossible. And so I hate to hear about, I appreciate you sharing like your personal stuff. And so where are you now? Like, so you just signed this deal cup. So you're in Seattle by yourself now, or you got kids out there? And
No. So they're in Denver. My son is a successful stand-up comedian now in Denver.
Wow.
He put out so he's killing it, dude. The second generation of Joe has been unleashed upon Denver. Dude, he's killing
dude.
It. And even in that, I had to deal with it because he's mad at Dad for all that happened back then.
Sure, I'm sure.
So
there's some unpacking to do.
Yeah, he kind of used Dad being in jail and the drinking and stuff like that. He branded himself, and we kind of had to tell him, okay, dude, like, it's one thing to kind of just go there. And I know that the branding yourself as a broken comedian makes it funnier. But I'm like, you have to kind of understand though, too, that I'm a real person, and people are going to think some of that shit is true. And I'm like, so just, you know, I had to kind of curtail that as much as I could on my own, which through other people, because he's still mad at me. I had to take my ex-wife to court, and that's a whole other shebang. But mental health is something I do want to advocate for, because I have 5 years. I have 5 years sober now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that was in February. Therapy is fucking great. And keep going to fucking therapy and get it fucking sorted out. Because we do need it, because we don't know. We're in such a our survival instincts are, God, I'm not going to go down this fucking rabbit hole, I promise, but our survival instincts haven't got from hunter-gatherer anymore, that what else do we have to fucking do anymore? Our lives are so fucking plush that we just panic inward. Right. You know? And then so of course
you're definitely hitting the nail right there, brother. Absolutely.
And I don't want to get too political by saying that, you know, Ronald Reagan was the one that decided to militarize the police and take all the mental health hospitals away.
Oh yeah.
You know,
they're all gone, dude. And Mike, dude, these people need hospitals, dude. And it's
they do. They need help. And I have to tell you, Jason, I'm so fucking glad that you talked about that personally, about your mom and going there for her, because my mom struggled with some mental health stuff too. And one of the things that broke me me 2.5 years ago, I broke my recovery streak and went hard for cocaine for a long time. And my mom took her own life.
Oh man, sorry to hear that.
And I feel like we kind of knew that was going on, and there was a situation involved with a family member that may or may not have been certain levels of elderly abuse. So I carry that guilt with me right now. Like, I didn't do enough. So when you telling me that you did that, fucking right on, dude. Fucking don't stop. Go there. When someone needs help, don't stop. Do whatever you can to fucking be there for them. And sometimes you can't. But Jason,
because
thank
the relationship
you so much for sharing that.
I appreciate it, man. I don't want to go into it too much because it's
I'm not asking
raw.
you to. I'm just,
but I appreciate it, and the point is that enough. Our society right now, it's almost like the perfect stew to make us even crazier, and not and the fact that there's a lot of talk and signaling, but there's not a lot of actually work being done to help people, to get them off the street, to get them clean and sober. It's just the system where they just kind of run you through, and hey, take these and we'll see you. Yeah, well, just take a couple of these and hit the road, Jack.
That's not helping it.
Yeah. But I'm glad to hear your story so it's got a happy ending in here. Like you're in a good spot now.
Yeah. I do feel good. There's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of pieces to be picked up, and that's just kind of life. But the main thing it comes back to is I want my children to have a North Star. I like that someone said at one point you stop becoming the producers and you become a consultant in their life. I think I just heard Amy Poehler say that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's good. Actually. And it's a series of short stories. So I still have a lot of amends to make up in those areas, a lot of amends for friends and people have seen, and that'll be a lifelong thing. I'm always trying to better myself, but it comes down to wanting to make sure that I'm not just a tragedy for my kids and my family, but music is a thing that saves me, that thrives me, that makes me want to, besides my children, wake up in the morning. And I fucking have such a vibrant passion for it. And getting Vimana back on the stage again is definitely a number one priority of mine. And I've let it go for too long, because music, I don't give a fuck if anything happens with it. I want it to happen. I know kind of the recipe a little bit of how
the recipe.
But I'm not centering my whole, I'm not throwing out to whether it's just, if I don't get this, the record doesn't come out the way I want to, don't get the tours and all that, doesn't happen. I don't give a fuck. If I'm creating music and I'm collaborating and I'm in a good mental, healthy space, then I'm fucking good.
Right. And I tell you what you sent me from Vimana, wow, dude, I was freaking blown away, because
really?
I get a little bit. There's some good bands coming out right now. There's some good music out. Yeah. I'm really into this band called Igor. That's like really cool.
They're fucking great, aren't they?
Dude,
I love
live is just off the hook, and it's so different.
That's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, and then I'm like, what are they doing in the studio? It's just everything is in your face. Yeah, and so there's a lot of good stuff, but there's also, like where we're all doing the same samples and all this stuff. And so there's a lot of homogeny kind of going on too.
Perfect word.
And so I'm kind of, I find myself being like, music sucks, and there's like 10 good bands and that's it. And then I was in one of those moods, and you sent me like, hey, here's what I'm working on. And I was sitting there listening to it. I listened to that whole, it was like a little 20-minute clip. I listened to that whole thing twice. I was like, dude,
that's the whole thing. That's freaking, the whole EP.
And that's what I said. I was like, dude, this dude is still flying. Like all my members like, why are you slow now? Because I'm 50. And it's like, oh no, you're freaking flying. I'm like, well, I guess I can't use the old excuse anymore, because Zach is freaking shredding that thing, dude. I was thanks, and it's cool music. Like it had really cool. So I'm really looking forward to when. So awesome, right now you're just trying to get back to Denver, get established with the band, and then you guys are like, what do you think? You're gonna, I guess it brings us to another question. What are your recording plans for the new album? Do you even have plans yet?
So, in talking, someone that I need to really throw a lot of love to is Nick Shingelis. one of my best friends who I love dearly. And he, I brought him on to Cephalic to do Xeno and that. And, Misled by Certainty, the album they made after me, after I left. And then, him joining Job for a Cowboy and Havoc. And he's become a whole brand ambassador of his own. And it's great. And so he has kept me in the loop of how the business kind of continues to move. So I brought him along to, show, we showed him how to do it. And then now he's the guy that I look to. He's my North Star to look to how to do this. And one thing that we've talked a lot about is, when MP3s came out and the iPod and all that stuff like that, I fucking stopped listening to albums. I really did. And so I'm a big culprit as anybody else of just like my attention span doesn't, and then this is coming from a guy who worshiped Mr. Bungle more than any other band in the world. So, if it doesn't change genres every 2 seconds or tempos or something,
sure.
And I lose interest. So that's kind of overstimulation, I think, of this era too, of the Spotify shuffle and so, but I do it too. And it's like, not that albums aren't selling or aren't important. You should be able to have your attention span lock into something for a fucking hour. I mean, as soon as I think that we've TikToked out and the attention span has dropped to 5 seconds, I'm watching 8-hour movies on TV all the time, and I can sit and read a book. So the attention span is there. All of that to say that right now, just concerned about doing EPs. And I think what I want to do is that EP there, we will use that and mix it and finish it up. I have tooled with it a little too much of the guitars since you've heard it. I know I've probably went overboard and fucked it up. I should just leave it alone. But I think it just EPs, release an EP, maybe tour for it. After that, 10, 11, 12 months goes by, you release another EP, tour for that. At the end of that, you can put that together in an album, release it with an extra track. I just, at this point, I'm really not interested in putting out full-length albums. I've really liked just the series of EPs.
Yeah.
I'm sure once I get talking to a label again, they'll tell me that's the worst idea ever. But so I'm just interested in doing EPs for now.
Yeah. So. I like it right now. We're just doing singles even. But we want to put together a vinyl. And then I'm like, but none of these songs go together. And it's like, I'm usually like, you got to do the whole album. And it's like, well, we got to record a whole album. Or I'm going to have to remix and master all this stuff to do we'll see. That's another story, right, Tony? But, so that,
I want to hear fucking Tony.
So
are you playing guitar on that stuff, Tony? Or are you playing drums?
Both actually.
Okay.
I'm doing a lot of the leads, and then
you were always the fucking the triple threat, man. Back in the day, you were like one of the first dudes I saw that could be in a couple different bands playing different instruments and just absolutely killed it. So I'm excited to hear it, Tony. I've steamrolled right over you this whole conversation. But don't think I don't respect you completely, man. I look forward to hearing what you're doing.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Tony, he's my guy on this, and sometimes he'll chime in, and then sometimes he gets steamrolled a little bit. Tony's like too polite. Sometimes you got to like throw a freaking knife out there and get back in the mix. Right.
So yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question, which is about labels. And I've got a funny story. When I moved, I was a kid. When I moved to Denver, I moved to Aurora. I got one of my first jobs was at like Pizza Hut delivery center, and it was like a call center. And the dude that trained me in the call center was Matt Jacobson.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like sitting there with him, and I'm like, yo, dude, if you take this mic and you stick it in your, it'll like, fucking hostile. And he was like sitting there laughing. He's like, yeah, dude, I'm going to start a label here. You want to? He was like starting giving me merch and shit.
That's insane, dude.
Yeah.
So great.
And so,
dude,
go ahead.
I'll have to, I literally just talked to him last week for like an hour. Because and this probably brings up a good time that I can say about this too. There is some Relapse news. There is some Cephalic Carnage news that I got the clearance to announce on the podcast. But I talked to Matt for an hour like 2 weeks ago just to talk to him about because he doesn't own Relapse anymore. He sold it.
I was researching that, but I didn't know how it went. So he doesn't have it. He's out.
Nope. Sony actually came in.
Wow.
And so Where's my fucking PlayStation? I was obviously out of the band for that, but I've kept in really good contact with the Relapse guys. And so I can say that now that they're repressing 2 of the albums for sure right now. Lucid Interval and Anomalies are getting repressed. So we can, that's your hot press clickbait thing.
Awesome.
I'm the first to say it, and the Relapse announced it right now. We can say that they are repressing Lucid Interval and Anomalies. And
nice.
So that's really kind of an exciting thing. There are some other things in the works right now that are kind of cooler and bigger than that even. So Relapse has really kind of come full circle and really wants to kind of bring those albums back out into the spotlight, and they want to bring that era back into the spotlight. You can see that they're re-releasing and repressing Soylent Green and Nile as well, and
wow.
Index. And but I was really kind of pleasantly surprised that they wanted to do that, and that these albums aren't going to just kind of drift off into obscurity.
Sure.
And it's kind of
Now,
even with this podcast.
Too.
Yeah, and they look fucking great, dude. And so that is a for sure thing. So we can announce that, that's the big Cephalic Carnage news, is that they're repressing Anomalies and Lucid Interval for now.
That's going to be awesome.
More things possibly to come.
Yeah.
That's all I've been greenlighted. So you knew about Jacobson. Tell me more about that.
Well, that's really all I got and then he went and he started Relapse. And I used to always think like, oh, if I could just but really now I just wanted to interview him on the podcast, honestly, because he was Relapse was such an integral part. So many cool bands. I mean, Exit 13, so much cool stuff that I think, and then my little hook, like, bro, we used to work together at Pizza Hut. Like,
absolutely.
Believe that or not. Like, I think that would be fun.
I will call him and ask
Is he in, so he's got like a
Portland.
Brewery or something now? That's what I was like looking up online, trying to research information.
He moved out to Portland, and he kind of did a Relapse was, they had a Japanese office, and they had the office in Rotterdam and the Netherlands, and then they and Tilburg, I'm sorry, and then he moved out to Portland and kind of did a section of the label, ran from there, to which one of our old buddies, Matt Blanks, who was kind of from 1980D, I'm not sure if you guys remember that band from Denver. He used to tour with us, and so he kind of became Matt's number 2 out there. And then he got into the restaurant business and started the Sizzle Pie chain, which has done really, really well all around Portland. They had one in Seattle. They were going to open a couple in Denver. COVID kind of slammed the brakes on a lot of that. So he became a restaurateur in breweries like White Owl Social Club. But all that to say that he did pretty well in the real estate restaurant game.
Good for him.
Relapse. And I was thinking about that before I did the podcast, because you were thinking we're kind of just getting this off the ground. I'm like, yo, who can I throw at you?
Right.
That's definitely more of an important name than mine, and can give you kind of more insight into that and be a fun conversationalist. Matt Jacobson's one of them. I don't know. I'll text him.
Yeah,
tonight.
You never know. You just got to feel is he interested or not. But it's all good, man. And so right now, from your perspective and all of your experience, do you think modern bands, the kids coming up, still need a label?
That's a really good question. I think you should ask labels about that.
Right.
Have you guys seen that documentary? And I hate to fucking recommend documentaries. I hate being that guy. But there's one that was actually, Jared Leto's band 30 Seconds to Mars. Mm-hmm. The actor Jared Leto. Am I mansplaining or condescending here?
No, I'm mansplaining.
I'm mansplaining. I've been mansplaining this whole time. You should see it to the man spread I've got on.
No, we're good.
But, it's a really good documentary about how bands and labels can actually work. Of course, he's working with Apple Records or whatever that was that the Beatles were on. But it'll kind of explain to you what that goes on. You need capital to get the fuck out there. A label is essentially a bank that loans you money against yourself to make your own band bigger. And one thing that Gordon Conrad, who was, the guy behind, Mastodon, Dying Fetus, Soylent Green, Dillinger Escape Plan, Cephalic. He was a huge, huge entity at Relapse. And now he's, bringing up bands like Archspire. Archspire. That's who Dave's recording right now, by the way.
Oh.
I don't know. I guess they already announced that. But so he's kind of taken his mentorship behind those other bands. I've heard a few things in the rumor mill about that about that label Season of Mist 2 recently that I don't know if for true or not, but he told me once, no one's ever going to work as hard for you as you. No one's ever going to fucking work for as hard as your band as you. No label, nobody. So think of a label as a bank. You need fucking capital to get started. You need to go out there and tour. You know, it's, yes, are you going to be the MySpace fucking blow up that Job for Cowboy and Suicide Silence were? Mm-hmm. Or are you going to be, as a TikTok, you know, are you going to do a lot of crowd work like comedians? How are you going to blow up? That's still a fucking lottery.
Yeah. You still got to get on the road and get in front of people and throw down.
Yeah. And that touring is the biggest thing. And who's going to put your records out? Labels still have that. I think they're still kind of working on an antiquated model. You'd have to ask someone else other than me right now who's working with them more. A label's always going to tell you that the labels need to be there. Right. But you do, especially with a label that's kind of got, because they have connections that come with the label. They you know, is it better that you do it on your own and you bring in all your own money? Yes. Does a young fucking band, just not to drop another name, but I was just talking to Ben Weinman about this on Instagram when he put something up on stories and we kind of went back and forth for a second about how some of these bands are kind of, the kids come out and they're kind of got a know-it-all vibe.
Oh yeah.
Well, I know exactly how this is done.
Yeah, I got a 20-year-old too, you know, I don't need you to tell me shit. Yeah. So you do need that guidance. You do need that mentorship. Right. I think. Right. And you need that capital. Does a label provide that? Is the contemporary world need a fucking record label? Do movies need studios? Right. I mean, you know, the world is changing. The world is changing right now, and so, I don't think I have the answer to that, really. You know. Yeah. I'm just curious because you do hear about bands, you know, that are blown up with no label, or they're self-produced, and it's more kind of like you said, it's more these TikTok kind of fringe things. I think. What's the weird? There's a pop chick that's like all self-produced that got huge, like Billie Eilish, right? She's like, just making them in the basement. Does that not fucking explain it? Like, and I gotta tell you, I fucking love that Billie Eilish record. Like Phineas, they're fucking genius, and that shit came out. I loved it. My daughter actually totally got me into that, and I took her out to Red Rocks because our old one of our closest buddies is the production manager for AEG now. And got me up close and like talk about pulling the biggest dad card ever. I thought I was going to be dad of the fucking year. You get her there and she's nope, dad, get the fuck away from me. Right. So we say like Billie Eilish, that brings up a good point. They did it like, and this is such a tired platitude to say, that the 15-year-old with a MacBook in his fucking in his room can produce what they were doing in 24 tracks. You know, and that Steve Albini or, you know, anybody was doing, you know, Butch Vig or whatever was doing back then. Yeah. And do you need the fucking label? There is the question. Yeah. Well, if you're going to hit the road, you're going to say, sorry. No, that's, I don't know. I fucking don't know. Yeah. It doesn't seem like you do, but there's another part of me that says, how are you going to do it on your own? Do you know what the fuck you're doing? You need that mentorship. You need that capital. You know? You need those connections. Yeah. It's
almost the same answers you would have 30 years ago in a way. I mean,
except you don't have to like manila envelopes and, you know, go pay $1,000 to play Milwaukee Metal Fest, you know, and try to get in front of some people. But that's, you know, it's the same old thing. But to me, it's just like, wow, you mean to tell me in this day and age, like I can write, record, edit, do all this stuff, get my music mixed down. I can master it myself. I can send it out to Matt. Like our last song, we had Ackle from Tesseract master, and I hooked up with him online, and I sent him the stuff. He sent it back, and within like 2 days, I'm like, dude, this sounds fucking awesome, you know. And I'm like blown away. And it's like, okay, and then now it's out to the masses, and so, you know, of course, then like, okay, how am I booking gigs and everything else? But it's so I'm way out of the loop, but it just seems like the world has changed so dramatically now. It's like, okay, are labels dying? or are they just trying to find a new way to hang you out? But obviously, if you get on a good label like you did, where they're willing to invest, the label has the money to invest. It's not just like your buddy, who's like, I'm a label now, But so, I guess we're winding down, dude. This has been a super long podcast, but I appreciate,
I apologize. That's my fault.
Oh no, it's good, man.
You leave a guy in an apartment in Seattle for too long and not talk to anybody, he's gonna fucking just vomit all over you. So
when you guys go to do Vimana, are you going to self-produce any of that kind of stuff? Or are you going back to Dave and doing? Do you got a plan yet, or are you guys just gotta see what happens when you get there?
Dave, I think, will always be in the mix somewhere for me. He's a friend. He's a good friend. I respect the shit out of him. I know that our friendship will always kind of be there. We have proven that we are great collaborators together.
Awesome. Yeah. And the dude is a freaking genius, dude. And
he's
it just keeps getting
great,
better and better and better. It's like, wow.
Dude, I mean, let's talk. It's not even like the shit that's, kind of just blowing up that he's a part of. I mean, he is the guy, Jason Sukoff and he and Eric Rutan, if you talk about the extreme metal people and he's in that conversation, top 5.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To me, he's always going to be number 1 because we came up together.
Yeah.
So like, I know this. I use Studio One and get good drums. And so I know that well enough. I've got good enough equipment to kind of do it. I use the plugins.
So you kind of write your stuff. Maybe you guys can write a little bit, and then you'll go to Dave and maybe do it for real.
Well, like the EP that I sent you, like there's I've finished the guitar since then, and there will be bass added and vocals added, and we're just gonna have at that point I was taking it to my friend Leon Del Muerte at his studio in Portland, so he could mix it because it kind of helps him and it helps us. And so that my ears, weren't fucking it up because I would, I've listened to it too much. So, and then Dave was going to master it. So I think I'll just have Dave mix it and master it and then release that EP. For my money, Dave will always be part of the equation. And I'm proud to have that there. And how fucking lucky am I to have that
absolutely
friendship, so.
Absolutely. Yeah. So hopefully, I know he's a busy man. Hopefully I'll be able to get him on too, but, all right, man. Well,
I'll do what I can.
Hey, just you coming on enough. Like, I really appreciate it. And
this was great, man.
I always appreciated, the after parties and hanging out with you, bro. In my mind, you were one of the premier kind of guitarist of that day that was just taking it to another level. I remember seeing you guys play, and then it just kept getting better and better and better and better produced. And then it really is, once you're a pro working band and you come back home, it's freaking obvious. It's like, they're just fucking on point, just blowing it out.
It blew us away the first time that we pulled like 1,300 people to the Ogden Theater and we broke like local, band records for attendance. We were like, what?
Yeah, I think I was at that gig
too. And then we did it a year later and we're like, this shouldn't be happening. So fellas, awesome. I got to tell you, it's been fucking great to see your faces. You guys are old friends. I always respected you guys. I respected your bands. You were always two of the best behaved, and best musicians in the scene. And I remember the parties, and it's just to talk to people from my hometown. It's been great to see your faces, and Jason too. Congratulations on being a dad and moving out there and kind of doing the right thing like that. Tony, I will never forget how many times besides Butcher Shop, just seeing you tear it up the Nicaraguan Death Squad on that electric kit with the Soprano shirt. And just how great, you guys were always great, and I'm proud to be part of that Denver metal family. So thank you.
That means
absolutely,
a lot,
man. All right, brother. Well, hey, everybody, thanks that you stayed. Sorry, bro, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh,
Tony.
no,
I'm sorry.
just right back at you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All right. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe, all of that crap, y'all. And thanks again for stopping in. We'll do this once a week.
Fucking subscribe button.
That's right. Everybody take care. See ya.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.